Third down and 11. Ward able to spin free of Searcy and then goes to the end zone, and in the back of the end zone it is Jacoby George.
We ballin', boy. Two spike one. The old middle is picked up, intercepted by Maui Noah in Miami. Who's going to get out of here with a win? You're talking about the championship drought, but now in back-to-back games. There you go.
All right, the Miami Hurricanes 2025. The college preview series returns. Let's talk Hurricanes. Now, of course, guys, I can take this in a million and one ways. Typically, we kind of open the table up. We kind of have conversation. Questions get asked. What I'll do to kind of start it out, just talk about some of the major changes that took place over the offseason. Number one, obviously, Miami brought in Carson Beck. 2-year starter at the University of Georgia, SEC champion, all of those good things. Originally, people believe he's going to the NFL draft. He pulls out of that situation, decides to go to Miami. And on top of Carson Beck coming in, Miami also brought in a few receivers to throw some numbers at that. They lose a lot of production in the wide receiver room, so they bring in a number of receivers, kind of throwing bodies at it. On the defensive side of the ball, replace the defensive coordinator. So Lance Guidry gets replaced by Corey Heatherman. The defense was putrid last season, and that's putting it nicely. You bring in Corey Heatherman, who was the defensive coordinator at Minnesota, and fielded a top 15 defense up there in the Big Ten. And then you bring in numbers on the defensive back room, right? They literally threw numbers at the defensive back room. I want to say they brought in 6 DBs, if I remember correctly, to supplement what simply was not good enough of a room. So those are some of the high-level changes from a staff and roster perspective. You replace, again, all of your defensive coaches, less except for Jason Taylor, who's the defensive end coach. You kept him. Everybody else on the defensive staff got replaced, coordinators, position coaches, what have you, and you bring in some few names. With that kind of setting the table, again, I can go a million and one ways with this. Is there something you guys kind of would like to dig into if you're questioning, poking holes to say what is going to make or break this Hurricane football team?
So I would want to start with the secondary. So the first thing I want to ask is Xavier Lucas. What's the deal with that quote unquote lawsuit that's going on, or is there a lawsuit going on?
There's a lawsuit.
Tampering. Is there any traction to it, or is it one of those things that's going to go away?
That lawsuit is going to be just as impactful as Michigan being investigated all last season.
Okay, moving right along.
No, I mean, and to be completely not to just brush it off and make it seem like it's absolutely nothing. So for those who don't know, Wisconsin had a cornerback, Xavier Lucas, who entered his name into the transfer portal, right? And the way the rule works, a kid enters his name. The school then has 48 hours to put his name into the system. Wisconsin chose not to do that. So then now the kid is like, hey, he goes and gets a lawyer and says, why is my name not in there? Essentially, he forces his way out of Wisconsin. He transferred to Miami. Wisconsin is claiming that Miami was tampering, having conversations with him, even made him an NIL deal while he was still enrolled in their program, even though Wisconsin themselves currently was found guilty of recruiting violations of their own. They're mad that this kid went about things the way that he did. And so now they're suing the University of Miami, which it's all just being drugged through the courts and people are filing paperwork. And at the moment, it means nothing at the moment.
It's just a case of the little guy being the little guy, which is, it happens every day in college football.
How is Wisconsin ever a little guy? In
what have they done to be considered a big dog?
They're in the Big Ten, so they make way more money than Miami does.
What are you winning?
Big Ten money's being a big guy versus a little guy doesn't mean winning. Miami's not winning anything either. So why is Miami a big guy?
Do you think Wisconsin has more money than Miami?
The school, yes.
Not the school, the football program.
It depends on your booster situation.
All right, it's fine. It's fine. So let's talk about the secondary. You add Xavier Lucas with an OJ Frederick, and that's an instant upgrade. And outside of those two guys, how does the back end look? Are you confident in these safeties that because you guys gave up a lot of touchdowns last year? Cam had to single-handedly win games because you couldn't stop Zoe and SJ in the slot. So the back end of this team was heavily invested in. Do you feel confident with the additions, not only the corners but the safeties that could be turned around? And we lost him.
Oh no.
Let's just talk crap about Miami until he gets back.
Hey, I'm always down with talking crap about Miami. I actually, honestly, I am curious. I want to ask Breeze when he gets back. I want to test his confidence level, right? Because I mean, again, it's you had your best chance of competing for a national championship last year, right? You're not getting another Heisman Trophy, candidate quarterback. Again, Carson Beck, he's good. And I think that, well, which Carson Beck are you getting? I want to ask him about that.
Right.
We've seen
they had a once in a lifetime offense, and then the defense wasn't average.
Yeah.
they were below average.
Yeah, one of the things I was going to bring up to him, and that team gave up 30 plus points to 5 ACC teams. The ACC isn't, powerhouse, right? We're not out there running the score up on people. So I want to get his confidence on how he feels about Carson Beck. I want to get his confidence level on Mario Cristobal, right? Because at the end of the day, I feel like, and we've kind of mentioned this before, like your head coach is going to win or lose you, let's just say 1 to 2 games a season, right? And I think Mario was good for at least that too, right? Now, the staff around him, he usually tries to see, it seems like he insulates himself with, coaches, good coaches around him. I think, he's just talking about that he played some guys on the defensive side. Cool. They need it. We know what that offense is going to be, at least on the O-line. We know that Mario is heavy on that O-line. That O-line is going to be solid, right? Running back room should be solid. They lost a lot at wide receiver, right? So when it comes to having explosive plays, you're going from having the number 1 offense in the country to what?
A bunch of potential. We, like you said, we know what Carson Beck can be, and I'm not gonna knock Miami. They got a bunch of talent, but
absolutely,
it's not Xavier Restrepo coming out there where he's a veteran guy that's done it before. The other receiver, not remembering his name right now, but number 3, he played multiple years as a starter. So, and that's a good point that you made. That Mario, he's kind of deflected to where he's recruited so well and gotten good coaches around him to where he kind of has to be off to the side in a way. And maybe that's what he wants. He gives me CEO type of coach, because the last time he made a decision, it was
I mean, let's be honest.
Take a knee instead of handing it off. So
we can be honest about it. But again, I'm Miami, who hasn't been relevant in the sense of, and it's not trying to knock them, not trying to be a a Noel fan, but just their relevance of being contenders for a national championship. Last year was their shot. That's the best season they've had in years, right? And in a weak ACC, you're a shoe-in to get in, and you blew it, right? They blew it in a sense. So what's your confidence of getting back to where we are now? And again, things are going to shake up in the ACC going forward, right? Florida State took the arrows for everybody. We can get out of the ACC soon. So now, where are you going to go? Because I mean, if you want to talk about the names that anybody would try to poach out of the ACC, you're going to take Florida State. You're going to take Clemson, right? Just the name.
I think Miami gets taken too, just off of the name.
I mean, sure, but again, just the relevance of, well, yeah, they've gotten to it. I mean, they still haven't even won the conference.
They're not the favorites to win it again. Clemson, a lot of people are talking Clemson, but to shoot Miami some bail, I don't think they lost as much as we think from last year. The most glaring thing is they lost the number 1 draft pick, Cam Ward. You don't get another Cam Ward, just like you don't get another Jordan Travis, another Jameis Winston. Those guys are once in a lifetime quarterback. But that's not to say that Carson Beck he was a Heisman front runner 2 years ago. So that's not to say he can't come in here and make plays or even just manage a really talented team. Because the one thing that could be a quarterback's best friend is a good offensive line, as well as
And he's
they're
gonna have that. He's gonna have
exactly. So and you look at the trenches on both sides, a lot of pieces are coming back.
Yeah.
Ruben Bain, I think he's on a mission to prove he is who a lot of people thought he was his freshman year, and he had a down year. I'm sure. I don't want to steal the thunder from Breeze. Hopefully, he comes back on. But there's a lot of guys that's coming back that with a lot to prove.
Yeah.
So it's not a team that lacks talent. It's just like you said, they had the opportunity right there. You had Florida State in a down year. Clemson, they were spiraling at one point.
Yeah.
And it's the ACC, so I don't think they lost a lot of talent. We just focusing on Cam Ward and with that mindset. Oh, Cam's not there. A lot of talent. There's still a lot of talent there.
Is that what Tommy's gonna say when we play Miami?
What was that?
Is that what Tommy's gonna say when we go down to play Miami? That Cam ain't walking through that door. Cam ain't here to save you.
Hey man, that game's gonna be interesting because either we arrive at that game at 4-0 or 3-1. Either way, it's gonna be a good game.
It's gonna be fun. It's Florida State, Miami. It's always gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
Breeze,
try not to steal your thunder, Breeze. We didn't really cover much, so I don't know where you want to go.
You didn't steal anything. I gave it away. Apparently, I don't know. Laptop conked out on me.
Hey man, it happens.
Pause that.
Hey yo, that's crazy.
Yeah,
I'm assuming you guys dove a little bit more into the defensive back room.
No, we went off on a tangent.
Okay,
is Mario Cristobal who we thought he was, or who he says he is? Or did I say it wrong?
Well, hold on. You get into what I was going to ask him, or you
so we're just getting into what we were talking about versus.
Okay.
So you want me to real quick answer the DB room question first?
Yeah.
You asked me, am I confident in them? I am in the corners. I am, because you added multiple starters at other programs. You added a starter from Houston by way of Auburn and Keontae Scott. You added a Jacoby Thomas, who was going to be a starter at Tennessee. You added an Xavier Lucas, who was arguably the best corner at Wisconsin, true freshman. He now goes into his second season. You already have an OJ Frederick in the room. You added Ethan Connor, who was a starter at Washington State. Charles Brantley was a starter at Michigan State. So you added several guys. Zechariah Porzer was the number 2 safety in the portal. So you added guys who were starters other places who've already been playing college ball. So you know the talent's there. You know they can play at this level. I have confidence, especially in the corners. That other safety spot is sketchy. But other than that, I do have confidence in the DB room.
Do you see a case where Damari Browns gets dropped back to safety? Because it seems like it's somebody's going to get left out, and he was a guy that a lot of people thought would take that step to being a star, and I think he kind of got hurt last year. At one point, y'all had him on Keon Coleman the entire game and pretty much locked him up, except for that touchdown he gave up, and then he kind of disappeared last year. So, is there a role for him in that room, or is it kind of these transfers are coming in and taking over that spot?
I mean, to be completely honest, I think for this year, I can't see him as a starter. I can't see him earning starter spots. Again, you talked about an OJ Frederick, who's a freshman All-American, and Ethan O'Connor, who was a starter somewhere else. Keontae Scott is going to be the starter at the nickel. They tried him out at nickel a little bit in the last offseason before he got hurt, basically for the year. I think his opportunity to see the field and a lot of playing time is safety. It just comes down to, is he willing to make that transition? Right? And some kids just don't want to do it. Some kids like, look, I want to be a corner. I'm a corner. Damari Brown, I think, can be a very talented corner. Is he going to be a starter on this year's team? I just can't see that happening, just because the room is so deep and guys who have been healthy, who were playing college ball last year and are also talented. So I think his easiest way to the field is safety. I think he have a great career safety. He's a big kid. He's like 6'2", 180 plus. Like, he's a sizable kid, and he can hit. He can tackle. So I love to see Damari switch over to safety. It just comes down to, is he willing to make that transition?
All right. I guess my main question, the biggest question I have is Cutter going to get any burn this year?
No, none. Zero. Cutter's getting 0 run. Inside joke.
Inside joke. My bad. No, honestly, so me and Unc were kind of talking about when you were down, the confidence that you have in the offensive side of the ball, which was the heart and soul of the team last year, right? Number one offense in the country, Heisman Trophy candidate, Heisman Trophy winner, number one pick in the draft. You lose that, you replace him with Carson Beck, a guy who can have Heisman like potential, but for what we've known for him, it's been kind of boom or bust a little bit for him, especially last year. You can always bounce back, right?
Mm.
What's your confidence in the quarterback room where you're replacing a lot of weapons at wide receiver? And then second part, what's your confidence level in Mario just as a coach? Plus or minus wins that he will give you or take away from you in the season.
So first part, confidence in the quarterback room is through the roof. Confidence in the wide receiver room is not. Now, I think this is where I came in, where Uncle was saying that there's a lot of talent still there. It's just not necessarily proven production, right? And a lot of those guys who are going to get a lot of the run at wide receiver this year either weren't there on that team last year or they weren't uber productive. JoJo Trader has to be a guy, right? He's looked at as, hey man, former 5-star wide receiver. You weren't able to get on the field last year because these veteran guys were just they were above you, right? They're more experienced, they were more ready. He has more ability than they do, but they were more experienced and they were ready, and you saw what that offense was able to do. A JoJo Trader has to step up. You brought in a transfer in, and I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. I was literally just looking at him.
CJ Daniels.
CJ Daniels, who, right, spends last year at LSU, battling through an injury most of the year. But the last time CJ Daniels played a full season, he went for 1,000 yards. So there's talent there, right? You bring in a Tony Johnson, who was a starter at Cincinnati for the last 2 years. You bring in a Keelan Marion, who he is a special teams All-American because of his speed and what he can do in space. But again, they haven't done it here, right? And they haven't done it together. They haven't played with Carson Beck. But as far as my confidence in Carson, I feel complete confidence in Carson. And for a couple of reasons. The first thing is, look at what he was able to do at Georgia, right? And it's very easy to say, and we always use the anecdotal versions of Alabama where the quarterbacks were mid, but the talent around them was so great it really didn't matter. When you look at Carson, that hasn't been the story. That was not the story of his Georgia tenure, right? Yes, 2 years ago, 2023, he did have incredible talent around him, right? He had the tight end, Brock Bowers, right? He had a receiver who ends up getting drafted to the Chargers. I'm blanking on his name at the moment. So, yes, he had elite talent around him, and they did great
Lad
things. Right?
McConkey.
Lad McConkey, right? And they put up big numbers. And then last season, everybody feels differently about Carson Beck, right? Because it didn't look as prolific. They still won the SEC with Carson Beck. Carson Beck still threw for almost 3,500 yards, 28 touchdowns. The 12 picks were there, yes. 145 on his QBR, completed 65% of his throws. If that's a down year, like that's a bad season, yeah, I'll
Yeah.
take that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Go ahead, bro.
I mean, I'm looking at his numbers. I don't think it was necessarily that, but I mean, also when he's playing he had a bad game against, Kentucky, wasn't good.
Mhm.
He had a bad game against Mississippi State. When he started playing real talent, real teams in Texas, no touchdowns, 3 picks. Didn't look too good. Played Florida, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks. So the Jekyll and Hyde of Carson Beck was there last year. Like you said, he didn't have that same talent around him to insulate him a little bit more. But now, did he have his good games? Absolutely, right.
Mhm.
But when it was time to come up against major competition, last year it wasn't there. So,
No, yeah,
so I
yes
guess
and no, because in the Alabama game, he starts out slow, he throws the picks, and then he charges back for a big comeback. They almost win that game. I think the other thing for Carson that, from what I've heard, one of the things that Georgia people talked about was they changed coordinators from 2023 to 2024. And the system that they ran was a very different system than he played in 2023. And that transition didn't go well. Right. So you're changing offensive coordinators. You obviously have less talent. You don't have a Brock Bowers on that roster. You don't have a Lad McConkey on that roster. Your receivers led the league in drops. Literally, Georgia's receivers had the worst hands in the country, statistically. So from a quarterback perspective, you think about being the quarterback at Georgia and the expectations of what's around you. I believe part of what happened was the same thing that Cam Ward had at Washington State, where you start to press, you start to force, and you try to do too much, and it bites you. So you see where, hey, yeah, when things are going well, receivers are catching the passes they should catch. Things went well, right? They put up a bunch of points in the second half against Alabama. They almost pull off an incredible comeback. They're able to find a way to beat Texas. He doesn't throw any touchdowns, but he still goes for um it wasn't a Texas game I was thinking about.
Yeah, but
The
he got
Mississippi State game where he
Mhm.
throws 2 picks, but he throws for 450 yards.
Mhm.
Right? So when the things were going well and the guys were doing the things they were supposed to around him, he looked fine. Right? So when I look at the totality of that season and I say, okay, his receivers were literally had the worst hands in the country, which is shocking for a University of Georgia program. They had one of their worst rushing seasons in years. They also couldn't run the ball. So now the quarterback invariably, usually will start to press, start to do too much. You're used to winning. You're expected to win as Georgia. I think there is a measure of the turnovers coming from that, where he is trying to now overcompensate for what's not around him to still live up to that Georgia expectation. And it's gonna bite you 100%. So no, he can't do that. He can't come to Miami and want to be a superhero. I don't think he can come to Miami and try and be Cam Ward. I think if he tries to do that, it's not gonna go well for him. But if he plays within a system that is very QB friendly, right? Let's be honest. I think Cam Ward is very special. I also think it's a very QB friendly system that we have now in Miami. That offensive coordinator is very easy reads, scheming guys open as opposed to having to throw guys open.
Okay.
And he's got an elite offensive line. I don't know if we'll spend a lot of time talking about that. I think this offensive line is going to be top 5 in the country. And you'll have a run game. So now you don't have to do as much. If you don't throw for 3,500 yards, that's okay. But if you throw for 3,000 and you cut those interceptions in half, Miami's playing meaningful ball late in the season.
So that's what I was going to allude to is the offensive line. You guys returned 4 starters on the offensive line. I think Mark Fletcher is primed for a breakout year. You still got Lyle Jordan or Jordan Lyle, I
Jordan
believe.
Lyle. Yeah.
Jordan Lyle back there, but I don't think it's going to be similar to last year where it's a lot of splitting of the carries. I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think Mark Fletcher gets a bulk of that carry behind a veteran offensive line. And my question is, do you see a wide open spread offense like last year where you're throwing the ball all over the place, or would you prefer for it to be a run first downhill offense and then allow Carson to not win you games like Cam would, but just make the plays when they need to be made? Because he is a veteran guy that can manage a game versus going out there trying to run all over the place and be Cam Ward. And you could just lean on this offensive line and this run game.
Yeah, I'm actually going to take Pump's second question and marry it with your question, right? He asked about who do I think Mario Cristobal is as a coach. Mario Cristobal as a coach is a guy who wants to run the football. He's a guy who wants to have an elite setup in the trenches, offensive line and defensive line. And I think he's got that on the offensive line. So with that being the case, you have to also keep in mind that the offensive coordinator kind of is who he is. Our Shannon Dawson is not a ground and pound, triple option offensive coordinator. So you kind of got to marry the two and say, what type of roster do we have? Does it make sense to throw the ball 50 times with Carson Beck? I would hope that they're saying no, that doesn't make sense. And you get more balance. And does it mean that, we're in the I formation or we're in a big I with 2 tight ends on 2nd and 8? I'd hope no, 2 on that. And you find that balance. Last year, we were too imbalanced, throwing the ball too much. And then as the season went on and Damian Martinez kind of got his feet on him, because Damian Martinez did go for 1,000 yards last year. So we did run the ball. Not that we didn't run at all, but you allowed yourself to be in positions where you had to throw the ball a ridiculous number of times. And I think what they will do this season is be a little more balanced. So if you were 70-30 last season, I imagine this year you're closer to a 60-40, 55-45, because you do have an awesome offensive line that can lean on people, impose its will. And they did it last year, right? That offensive line at times did that same thing to teams. And I think this line is better than last year's line, if I'm being honest in what I think this line can be. That the line is nasty. Like, of the things that I am most confident in this team, I have zero concerns about the offensive line, and I mean
All right.
zero. And I can't say that about any other room. Like, even with Carson, there has to be some concern because of the interceptions, right? Even with the running backs, there maybe is some concern because you haven't seen guys carry the ball for 1,000 yards yet, like Damian Martinez had when he came in. Defense, I think the defensive line is very elite, but there's some depth issues at D tackle. The offensive line is elite, they're talented, and there's depth. Like, honestly, I think we could have 3 guys who starters get hurt, and you won't see a complete fall off on that offensive line.
I
Like,
don't
I
like
have
it.
all the faith in that offensive line, man. I love the offensive line setup,
I don't like it one bit.
and I think we have the top of offensive line recruiting class right now, headed up by Jackson Cantwell, who's the number 1 player in the country.
All right, so my final question, I don't know if we want to get into recruiting, but my final question for you is Ruben Bain. He took a step back last year. And I know a lot of Miami fans have flashbacks of Leonard Taylor, where he was projected to be the next big defensive lineman, and it just never panned out. I think he had a great freshman season. Not similar to Ruben Bain, but a high level freshman season. Then it kind of
Yeah.
tailed off. Do you see that with Ruben Bain, or last year was just more so injury based, and it's kind of he's back to where he was as a freshman?
Yeah, I mean, you look at last year and he was hurt. And I'm gonna pull it up. I don't remember off the top of my head, but he missed several games. So he gets hurt after the first series of the first game of the year, and then he appears in 9 games with a lingering injury. And you still saw him be productive, right? Maybe not the sack numbers, but his pressures, especially against like the Louisville game. He was real impactful. The numbers don't necessarily say it, but you saw the talent was still there, the raw strength, the motor was still there, but maybe the burst just wasn't the same in some of his get off. And then he also saw double teams, which is kind of to be expected when you have a kid who's people know his name, right? I think Ruben this year has an opportunity to be what we think he'll be. He's projected right now, I believe, to be like a top 15 pick in next year's draft, depending on where you look. He's expected to be a first round pick next season because of the things that you saw. One of the things I like that he did this offseason, he's actually lost a little weight, right? He's naturally a thicker kid, pause, right? He's very sturdily built. Listen, come on, man. Like, how else am I supposed to say that where it doesn't sound sketch? Like, come on.
I
Like,
mean, do your
give me
thing, man. We
give
didn't
me a
say that.
break.
We was letting you go.
But he actually trimmed down a little bit, which I think is good for him from a longevity perspective, right? Literally, is carrying more weight can be tough. Even if you're built to carry it, if you're going to be a DN, you need to be a little twitchier, right? You can be a power rush on the end, and you can be an edge setter with some of that strength, but really some of that explosion, you oftentimes lose that unless you're, an Aaron Donald or you're just a freak of nature, and he's not that. So I think he trimmed down this season. He seems to be completely healthy. He was completely healthy through the spring, completely healthy so far going into fall camp. I think if Ruben is healthy, I think he has an opportunity to play himself into, at the worst, a day 2 pick.
Yeah, Ruben, he played the first game. He was out all the way until you guys played California. That was week 6.
Yeah. So, that's a lot of ball to be missing. And then, nobody's healthy at the end of the year anyway, but coming back after that, missing that time, he just didn't look the same. So I'm excited to see what he can look like this year. And we need him to be a guy. Now, again, we've recruited defensive end very, very well. Probably, I'd say we've recruited defensive end second best behind offensive line. So you've got young, talented guys in that room. You've got a Marquise Lightfoot, who was a 5-star recruit. You got a Hayden Lowe, who's a 5-star DN out of California, though he's a true freshman. So we have depth at DN of young talent. But, if Ruben can really be Ruben this year, obviously that makes things better for everybody else on the defense when your defensive line is disrupted.
If Mario doesn't win the ACC this year, what does that mean for Miami? Because and I'm not trying to take a shot. It's been 20 plus years and no conference championship. At some point, I would assume it's exhausting as a fan, but if you're the athletic director and you clearly think you got the guy, but he's not delivering trophies. Yeah, he's delivering top recruiting classes. You're spending all this money, although everybody's spending money, but at some point you want to see a return on your investment. If you go out there with, I think, is a competitive team in the ACC, it's between Clemson and Miami right now, in my estimation. If he doesn't go out there and get you a ACC championship or a playoff berth, what does that mean?
If he doesn't win the ACC, I don't know if that means anything, right? Because you can go 12-0 in a regular season and then you just lose to a really good Clemson team. Is that the end of the world? Does that mean like, hey, we got the wrong guy? I don't think so. It depends on what it looks like.
Fan bases, yeah. And Alabama went 9-3 after losing Saban, and everything's on fire in Tuscaloosa.
Not really.
We would die for 9-3.
They were disappointed in the season, I'd say, but nobody's talking about firing Kalen DeBoer.
No, I'm saying now if he puts together another 9-3 season and doesn't do anything, they're going to start talking about firing. But it's different levels to different fan bases. That's why I'm trying to gauge where is it at with Miami.
I think with Mario, you need to this season. If I'm being the rational fan, you need to be at a similar level you were. You cannot start going backwards. I think is the big thing, right? Because we saw what he took over. His first year, he goes 5-7. The next year, you go 7-5. This past season, you jump forward and you win 10 games, right? When we had this same conversation last offseason, I said every year it's gotten better. And I expected last year to take another step forward. And it did. You went out and you won double-digit games. We hadn't had a 10-win season. Then we've had one 10-win season in the last 20 years aside from 2024. So you see the progression. You see the talent acquisition. It's in a much better place than when he got here. So now for Mario, you hope, again, you take that next step, which is at the very least playing for an ACC championship and being in the playoff conversation, right? I mean, this last season, you're a play away from being in the ACC championship and making it to the playoff. So do you take that next step back? And I think more importantly, you took that step forward. You can't go backwards. So if you come out and you feel an 8-win team this year, I think the flags are gonna start to go up and the concerns will really become a thing, right? Because now you're saying, wait a minute, was last year where you bailed out by a Cam Ward, who was an elite talent and #1 overall pick, and now you start to see the failures behind the scenes now that you don't have a Cam Ward to go save you, then I would become concerned, me personally. But if they go out and they win double-digit wins again, right? Because who are we to be spoiled where double-digit win seasons aren't good enough? Like, I watched Miami win 5 games more times than I'd like to. I've seen Miami go 6-6. Are you going back to where you're losing to multiple teams that you shouldn't? The team is quitting on you halfway through the year, and now we're sitting here at 7-5 at the end of the year, and everybody's like, what went wrong? That can't happen. But if you go 12-0 in the regular season and you go out and you just happen to lose on the bounce of a ball to Clemson in the ACC championship and make a playoff, who am I to be like, that's not good enough? We're Miami. We haven't won anything in over a decade, over 2 decades. Pump's got a child that's about to be in high school, and she can't remember the last time Miami was really, really worth talking about. So who am I to now say, oh, double-digit wins ain't good enough?
That's the whole point, though. It's because you're Miami. That's why you should expect it. But I get it.
Well, in all honesty, and again, this is not, it's not throwing any shade, because I wanted to ask you, what do you think the future of Miami is, right? Because it seems like in the next couple of years, there's going to be a lot of change, right? All of us have the potential to get out of the ACC in really 3 years if we wanted to, right?
Mhm.
And if somebody right now is looking at the ACC, if the big two are sitting here and saying, well, let's just go off of what's there and who we want to poach. Clearly, they're going to want to go get Clemson, right? If you care about basketball, just say the way the SEC does. I would even say, okay, we might want to poach Duke and North Carolina, but let's put those to the side, right? Florida State has a lot of name recognition and a lot of recent name recognition. They just won an ACC championship. They just won a title 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, whatever it is, right? So there's Miami that's there, which has so much history behind it. The history is just not recent,
Mhm.
right? So in that instance, what's the future of Miami going forward? Just play projection. Just play Miss Cleo for a second. What happens right now if the ACC decides to break up and now all of a sudden the Big Ten and the SEC come calling?
I think Miami would find a home, and I think I've said this before. Miami, when it comes down to some of those decisions, right? Miami's not too different from a USC. USC ain't won none since '05. Not actually '04, not even '05. They lost to Texas in '05. And the Big Ten went and got them. Washington has never won a national championship ever, and the Big Ten went and got them. Oregon never won a national. Actually, Washington actually has one. I think they have a claimed one with us. They split one. Oregon's never won a national championship, and the Big Ten went and got them. So then, is it just about winning championships, or is it the brand recognition? When you play, will people watch? Are you recognized? Do you live up to certain other standards? Right? Because Miami has fielded a basketball team that can go out and win a conference championship and make the tournament. Do you have the academic standards? Miami is an AAU school, which is a requirement for the Big Ten. So I think Miami has the things where if the ACC fell apart and the Big Ten and the SEC did that thing again, where they're like, let me start grabbing assets, right? Let me grab them just to make sure the other people don't get them. Yeah, I think Miami is very quickly in one of those conversations because it has those things. Now, does it have a recent national championship? Absolutely not. But if you're a double-digit win team, accumulating talent the way that Miami has done so, multiple top 10 recruiting classes, Miami's been there. You've now attracted two guys who had the opportunity to be drafted to the NFL, but choose to come play for you instead. That says that there's something there, and you give them the additional resources of being in a Big Two. Yeah, well, then recruiting just becomes even easier for Mario, who that's what he does. He's recruiting against the biggest guys in the land without having the money that they've got in certain ways, right? Miami gets money in other ways because the boosters or whatever. So if I look forward and I think, yeah, if the ACC fell apart, will Miami be able to find a home? I think the answer is yes. I'm not overly concerned about that. And I think they'd be just fine because we can supplement and we kind of even the playing field by having a very strong booster group and a very, very strong collective. But I've said this when Mario came in. I think we talked about it last season, right? Because the conversation was Mario's getting in the way of the team winning, right? And you go out last season, and I don't think there's a single game that anybody could point at and say, well, Mario as a game day coach was a problem. I can't think of a single game where that was the case. Now, you can go out and you can say the defense was a problem, or Cam Ward at times pressing and trying to do too much was a problem 100%. But the conversation now has changed even year over year, right? When we talked about this last year, we were talking about the Georgia Tech game where he doesn't take a knee. And we're talking about other games where he doesn't call a timeout. And then last season, none of that resurfaced. So Mario, in my opinion, is exactly who I thought he's going to be. He's going to be an elite talent acquisition guy. He's going to bring in talent. And at some point, if he continues to be able to accumulate talent the way he does, and I said this last year, eventually the talent will be so good that they will win in spite of whatever he might not be. Ed Orgeron is not a guru when it comes to coaching. But you know what he did? He accumulated one of the best offenses the world has ever seen.
Nah,
So if
he
you could,
did.
That man's he accumulated a lot of other things too.
I mean, 100% on that too, right? But I don't think Mario Cristobal, he'll never be in conversations with Nick Saban. Absolutely not. He's probably more likely to end up in conversations with James Franklin. Is that the worst thing in the world? Is that the end of the world? Because at some point, there's a potential where James Franklin accumulates enough talent where they win in spite of him. And I'd rather be James Franklin than to be, I don't know. What's our boy who went to Nebraska and ended up having to crawl back to UCF this
Scott
last year?
Frost.
Yeah,
Scott, I'd rather have a James Franklin than a Scott Frost.
And he would be the Michael Jordan of James
Yeah, but
Franklin.
And the Michael Jordan of James Franklin's might stumble on a national championship simply because you're able to accumulate enough talent.
he's not. He's not.
I don't think he is either, but you know what I mean? Like you can talent can supersede what you are or not as a coach. Right? The Cleveland Cavaliers won a championship. Who was the head coach when they won their last chip with Bron?
That wasn't Ty Lue, was it?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
Ty Lue.
The fact that y'all actually, I didn't know, but does it matter? Like,
No.
is Ty Lue Greg Popovich or Phil Jackson? No, he had LeBron James and Kyrie Irving. Like,
That's
yeah, bro.
That's a different scenario, but I get what you're
But
trying to
is
say.
it super different, right? At some point, if you have enough talent at your disposal, Todd Bowles. I don't think Todd Bowles is a great coach. I think the Bucks are going to be really, really good this year. The
Hey, we
talent
got to get
is
to
gonna
that. We got to get to that.
the talent can supersede what you may or may not be as a coach. And I think Mario, as a coach, has learned also to get out of the way.
All right.
Hire people to do their job and let them do their jobs.
All right. So close it up. Too early prediction. What's the 2025 Miami Hurricanes season?
I got the schedule up if you want me to call them off for you. Or do you
I
have
think
a record
I
off
know
top?
it off the top of my head. Last year, I backed my way into 11-1, and they should have hit. You're up 21-0 on Syracuse, and you turn around and lose that game.
Shout out to Fran.
No shout out to Fran.
Hey, he's one of the best coaches in the country. On the low.
We can circle back to that. I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna back my way into 11-1 again. I think
right,
they do.
so
I do think they lose a game that they shouldn't. I think Miami will be more talented than at least 10 of the teams that they play. You don't leave the state of Florida until November. We have one road game in the first 7 games, and it's at Florida State. I think we upset Notre Dame week 1. I definitely think we beat Florida. I don't see that they've closed the talent gap. We beat them in the trenches. Like we bullied them up front, and I don't see that they've gotten that much better up front. And I think we'll do it again.
So
I
in
can't
that
wait to get Frank on the show.
losses coming
Love to
from.
hear from Frank.
No, I think they will lose a game they probably have no business losing. I don't know what that game will be.
Interesting.
I don't anticipate it being a Syracuse. You get that game at home. You get Louisville at home. I think Louisville's sneaky good. They have arguably the best. They have a top 3 running back in the country, and nobody's talking about Isaac Brown. They also bring in a quarterback who is very experienced. Louisville is going to be an issue for people this year. Now, do I think they win double-digit wins? Probably not. But Louisville is going to be a tricky game. I do think they lose to a team they probably have no business losing to. But we will be talented. We will be more talented than everybody we play, save for maybe Notre Dame.
Are you concerned at SMU?
I think it could be like that game. First, because the quarterback he's a headache. That quarterback is a headache, and Rhett Lashley is a really, really good offensive coordinator. Rhett Lashley is not getting the credit he deserves. People aren't talking about him. He is actually bringing SMU around. They've won a couple of big recruiting battles this offseason. If SMU, them boosters start ponying up again,
Yeah, they got to prove it to me again.
unintended. I don't think they'll be playing for the conference championship again, but I think they will be a challenge to beat.
Well, I mean, the way you're talking is going to be Clemson, Miami.
It should be.
That's what it sounds like.
It should
Playoff
be.
bid potential.
It should be.
Natty
Yes.
run.
All right.
It should be. We should be a playoff team. Now, are we a national title contender? That's a different conversation. And I think there are some things we have to find out about some other programs to say whether that actually comes to fruition or not.
We can leave it at 11-1 with a conference championship appearance. We can
Before
leave
we
it there.
move on, can I get the Florida State score if you don't mind, sir?
What are you doing?
I just want to know. I know he
Florida
has thoughts.
State score. I'm gonna go 27-21 Miami.
Oh,
way too early. I don't think you guys are gonna be a bad
I'm
team.
not mad at that. I
I
can see
don't
that
think you
happening.
guys will be a bad team.
I don't either.
You will win more than 2 games. I can promise you that.
Stop it. All right, keep it moving.